Hey there, Titans. Welcome back to another Titan Academy video. In today's video, I will show you how to set up and use the Scheduler widget in Titan Web. The Scheduler widget, as its name suggests, allows you to schedule meetings or events and use dynamic Salesforce data all along the way. So let's get started. Over here, I have a blank project, and the first thing we want to do is we want to grab the Scheduler widget and place it on our page. So I'm going to head over to Widget, and I'm going to find the scheduler and drag and drop it. Now, the first thing it wants me to fill out is the actual users who we're going to schedule the event with. So the first thing we can do is we can select if it's a static user. So we can select static, head over here, fill in some users. We can add a few different ones. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to sync these from Salesforce. So I'm going to head back, and under data source, I'm going to select Salesforce. And I want to allow people to schedule events with my Salesforce users. So my object in Salesforce is going to be user. Under condition, I can filter out which users I want to allow people to schedule time with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that their first name is equal to Renan. And I actually have two users like these in my system, so people will be able to schedule events with two different users. Finally, under mapping, we need to map a few values here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to map the user ID to value. This is very important because later on we will use this user ID. Under avatar, I'm going to map photo. For name, I'm going to map full name. And then we can map some additional information here. Let's just do email under heading. And we can continue, but we really don't need to. So I'm going to hit apply, and you can see what we have here is a scheduler. But we are far from done configuring this. So let's head over to our settings here. And over here, we have some additional settings that we have to enable. So firstly, under meeting type, we have to configure the different types of events we want to allow people to schedule. So we can, again, select some data from Salesforce. If, for example, we had a list of events in some custom object, or if we can, we can do it through the products object, we can really do anything. In my case, I'm going to create some static events. So I'm going to create two events. The first one is going to be a 30-minute meeting. So I'm going to write there 30min. The name is going to be 30-minute meeting. And description will be short meeting with a pro. Under duration, this is duration in minutes. I'm going to put 30. And finally, the next meeting will be a 60-minute meeting. And duration is going to be 60 for this one. So if we hit apply, you'll see both of these now show up under meeting type over here. Next, we need to configure the actual events that already exist. These time slots will be marked off in the scheduler, and you won't be able to schedule events when an existing event is going on. So again, over here, you can use any custom object, but I'm going to use the Salesforce event object for this. So let's just find event here. And under number of records, I'm going to change this to a larger number, like 300 or 500. It's important to understand that whenever you're bringing back events, if you limit this to 20, for example, and the user already has 50 events in their calendar, you will basically be throwing away 30 of those events. So you will be allowing people to schedule two events simultaneously. So we'll do 500 because it's hard to believe that my users will ever have more than 500 events, but you can do here 1,000. You can really do a lot. So I'm going to hit next, and under conditions, there are two things that I want to specify over here. Firstly, I want to only get events in the future. So I'm going to do start date time is greater than, and under date, I'm going to select today, and assign to ID, and we can select the user ID from here, is equal to our scheduler user, which will hold our value. So basically, this will only be returning events for the user that was selected. So under mapping, what I'm going to do is I'm going to map here start date time to from time. Meeting length is going to be duration. To time is going to be end date time. And all day is going to be all day event. So if this is ticked, for example, the entire day will be blocked off for that specific user. So I'm going to hit apply over here, and those are the events configured. Under availability, we have here two sections. The first one is working hours, and the second one is holidays and absences. So under working hours, you can select a few options. So firstly, you have the user profile, which will give you only availability when the user profile is available. You can select regular, which is 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And you can select custom. If you had some custom object that held the current working hours for different users, you can select that object. I'll just select anything here really to show you the mapping. So you can need to map the day of week, start time, and end time. In my case, I'm going to use the user profile working hours. And the same thing for holidays and absences. You can leave it as none, select regular, or do custom, which again, you can select from Salesforce if you had such a record. And I'm going to leave this as none as well. Under form, what we want to configure is we want to configure the actual information we will be collecting from the user, the person actually filling out the event. So I'm going to configure a form, and I'm going to be creating a contact. So once they select a time slot, I will ask for some information, and based off of that info, I'll be creating a contact. So I'm going to select contact, and I'm going to do create. And I'm going to add a few columns here. I'm going to ask them for their first name, last name, and email. So let's hit apply over here. And next we can enable or disable the confirmation message. So you can see, you can also style it over here. We'll just ask them if they're sure. I'm going to leave it on and open it in a modal. And finally, the submit button. On submit, what I want to do is I want to run the Salesforce action to create my contact. Now, in addition to creating my contact, you can see the Salesforce push was already created here by the system. And we can go into the mapping and we can see this is last name, first name, and my email. These are all being mapped. Now, in addition to creating my contact, I actually want to obviously create an event. I don't want to just create a contact. I want to create a contact and an event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a child to the contact create here, and I'm going to select for the event object. So let's just find that over here. There we go, event. My action is going to be create. And under mapping, you'll see it already mapped my contact ID over here. And we have a few additional fields we need to map. So firstly, for subject, I'm going to create a custom subject here. And my subject is going to be just my scheduler username. And I'm going to add an ampersand, and I want to select the first name from the form, last name from the form, and finally the meeting duration. So my event name is going to be the user name, and then the attendee name, and finally the duration in minutes. Then under duration, we can map the scheduler meeting duration. For start date time, we have to select the scheduler date time. And for end date time, we have to select the scheduler end date time. Finally, assigned to ID is going to be our scheduler user. There we go. So that's everything mapped for our event. Now we can close this and we can select the contact push over here. And if we hit apply, whenever we submit this, we will be creating a contact and then creating an event related to that contact. So we can continue here. Under confirmed, we can add a custom message whenever they submit it. So we can write here anything in HTML. So let's do thank you for scheduling some time with us. And we can center this, make it bold. We can change the font here to anything really, and we can make this much larger. There we go. So let's hit apply. And over under interactivity, we can define some standard interactivity, such as hide on load. If we want to hide this on load, we can do default locale. If we know that, for example, most of the users using this will be from a certain locale, we can select that over here. I'm not going to select anything over there. We can define the time format, so we can have it as 12 hours or 24 hours. And then we have here a few options to limit certain dates. So firstly, we can disable today if you don't want to get any last minute events coming in. We can limit months in the future. So we can allow like only 3 months in the future. If you want to allow people to schedule a year in advance, if you leave this unticked, people can schedule events for 10 years down the road. I'm going to put 3 months under here. And finally, we can limit certain static days if we don't want to allow on a certain day. And we can limit from to. So we can allow people to only, for example, if we select February 2024 here and limit to a day, we do the end of February, then we will only allow people to schedule events in February of 2024. I'm going to untick both of these, and I'm going to leave this as is. So we're pretty much done over here. I'm going to save and preview this. And you can see over here, we can select the different users. And I defined that only users starting with the name Renan will appear. So these are the 2 users that appear. And if I select this one, for example, and I select 30-minute meeting, so we can select a meeting today because we disallowed today. But let's try scheduling a meeting tomorrow at 2 a.m. And let's just give this contact a name. And once we hit submit, we see the confirmation, we see our thank you message, and we now have an event between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. So if we head over to Salesforce and we refresh my upcoming events, you'll see I now have an event tomorrow at 3 a.m. This is because of the time zone difference. This is running on a different locale, actually, which is why you can select a locale. And you can see the event name over here. So if we head back over to our page here and we refresh the page, and again, select the same user and head over to 30-minute meeting, select tomorrow, you'll see that the 2 a.m. time slot is gone because it's now occupied. So we have the scheduler all set up properly. Now let's head back into our builder, and I can show you how you can style this a bit. So you can see you can access, using these buttons, all the different tabs of the scheduler. So you can see everything over here. And what you can do is you can head over to the scheduler styling, and you can change every single one of these. So you will be able to, once you change, for example, the calendar, and we can change the fill here, something, you'll be able to view that. Yeah, we don't want it black. And you'll be able to view that by clicking on these different buttons. And that's how it's done.